On Sunday, November 12th, 2023, at exactly 6:47 p.m., my son-in-law Tyler Wilson raised his hand and slapped my daughter Amanda across the face at my dinner table. His mother, Michelle Wilson, sitting 3 feet away, clapped her hands together and said, "Finally, someone needed to put her in her place." I'm Roger Miller. I'm 67 years old. I've been a widower for 20 years, a retired Atlanta police detective for 30 years, and a Vietnam veteran who served 2 tours between 1975 and 1977. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't move from my chair. I pulled out my cell phone, dialed 911, and said 7 words that would change everything. My daughter has just been assaulted. Then I looked at everyone at that table, all 14 people who had witnessed what just happened, and I said something I never thought I'd have the strength to say. Nobody leaves this house. This is the story of how one phone call dismantled a 7-year nightmare, exposed a criminal conspiracy, and saved my daughter's life. Let me take you back to that Sunday afternoon. I had been preparing for this dinner since Thursday. It was our family tradition. Every second Sunday of the month, everyone gathered at my house at 847 Riverside Drive for what I called Sunday Supper. I'd been doing this for 20 years, ever since my wife Barbara passed away from cancer in 2003. The tradition started back when I was still working homicide downtown. Barbara always said Sunday dinner was sacred time. No work calls, no case files, just family. After she died, I kept it going because it was the one thing that made the house feel alive again. My VFW buddies from Post 2681 always joked that I ran Sunday dinner like a military operation. They weren't wrong. That November afternoon, I'd spent 6 hours cooking barbecue ribs, the recipe my father brought from Tennessee in 1958. Corn on the cob, perfectly grilled. Coleslaw with my secret dressing. Cornbread from my cast-iron skillet that Barbara bought me for our 25th anniversary. Apple pie cooling on the counter. The house smelled like home cooking. That's what my daughter Amanda used to say when she was small. "Daddy, your kitchen smells like Sunday." By 5:30 p.m., people started arriving. My sister Nicole came first, bringing her famous mac and cheese. Then my nephew Kevin, with his wife Rachel and their 3 kids. Reverend Stephanie Johnson from New Hope Baptist came with her husband Scott. I'd known Scott since our Army days. He'd served in Vietnam too, came back the same time I did in 1977. We both found our way to the same church, both trying to make sense of things we'd seen. Amanda was supposed to arrive at 6 p.m. She came at 6:43 p.m. I was setting out the sweet tea when I heard the key turn in my lock. I'd given her that key when she moved into her first apartment at age 22. She'd kept it for 16 years. When she walked in, I knew something was wrong immediately. You learn to read people after 30 years in police work. Body language, voice, tone, the way someone carries themselves. My daughter was carrying herself like someone who'd been hurt. Amanda was wearing a turtleneck in November. That wouldn't seem unusual to most people, but this was Atlanta, Georgia. It was 72 degrees outside, and my daughter hadn't worn turtlenecks since high school. Her makeup was heavier than usual. Foundation applied thick around her left cheekbone, concealer under both eyes. The kind of coverage work I'd seen too many times on domestic violence calls. "Hey, Daddy," she said, her voice too bright, too forced. Behind her came Tyler Wilson, 6 feet 2 inches tall, 215 pounds, wearing a Ralph Lauren polo shirt and an expression I'd seen too many times before on suspects in interrogation rooms. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind that says, "I'm in control here." And behind him, Michelle Wilson, Tyler's mother, 74 years old, former middle school teacher, dressed in a St. John knit suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Roger," Michelle said. Not hello or good evening. Just my name, flat and cold, the way a defense attorney says your name when they're trying to discredit your testimony. My grandson Nathan came in last, 7 years old, wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt, holding his Nintendo Switch with both hands, eyes down. He didn't run to hug me like he usually did. He didn't say, "Hi, Grandpa," in that loud, joyful way that always made my heart sing. He just walked past me to the couch and sat down, still looking at his game. That's when I knew. In my gut, in that place where cops learn to trust their instincts, I knew my daughter was in trouble. After 30 years of walking into houses where something was wrong, you develop a sixth sense for danger. The air feels different. People move different, children especially. Nathan was moving like a kid who'd seen things he shouldn't have seen. I thought about calling my old partner, Jimmy Rodriguez, who'd retired to Tampa last year. Jimmy always said, "Miller, your problem is you see too much. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. But not when it comes to family. Never when it comes to family." Dinner started at 6:50 p.m. 14 people crowded around my dining table and the card table I'd set up in the living room. I'd made place cards, something I'd started doing after Barbara died to make things feel special, formal, honoring the tradition. I'd put Amanda between me and her son, Nathan. Tyler was across the table. Michelle was next to him. We blessed the food. Reverend Stephanie said a beautiful prayer about family and gratitude and protection. I remember that word now. Protection. During the prayer, I caught Tyler checking his phone. Disrespectful. Barbara would have said something. I should have said something. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed normal. People ate, complimented the food, talked about their weeks. My nephew Kevin told a funny story about his boss. Nicole complained about the potholes on Peachtree Street. Scott mentioned that the VFW was organizing a food drive for Thanksgiving. Normal family conversation. Then Michelle Wilson spoke, and everything changed. "Amanda," she said, her voice cutting through the conversation sharp and direct. "This cornbread is very dry. Didn't Roger teach you proper cooking?" The table went quiet. I hadn't made the cornbread. Amanda knew I'd made the cornbread. Everyone at that table knew I'd made the cornbread. It was my signature dish, the one thing I made the same way every single time, using Barbara's grandmother's recipe. "I didn't make it," Amanda started, but her voice was small, apologetic. "It's fine, Michelle," I interrupted gently. "I made the cornbread. If it's too dry for you, I can get you something else." Michelle smiled, but it was cold. "Oh, I'm sure Amanda helped. She needs to practice for when she's cooking for her own family." "She is cooking for her own family," I said quietly. "She has been for 7 years." Tyler's fork hit his plate with a sharp clink. "Actually," he said, and I didn't like his tone. Not one bit. "We need to talk about that. Amanda's been talking about going back to work full-time at the pharmacy." My sister Nicole looked up. "That's wonderful, Amanda. You were always so good at—" "It's not wonderful," Michelle interrupted. "It's selfish." The word hung in the air, heavy and wrong. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice very calm. In police work, you learn to keep your voice level when things start escalating. It's often the difference between de-escalation and someone getting hurt. "She has a 7-year-old son," Michelle continued, looking at me directly like she was explaining something to a child. "Her responsibility is in her home with her child, supporting her husband, not playing pharmacist while her family falls apart." "I have a PharmD degree," Amanda said quietly. Her voice was shaking, but she was speaking. "I worked hard for that degree, and Dad offered to help with Nathan after school." Tyler stood up. I will never forget the sound of his chair scraping against my hardwood floor. It was 7:12 p.m. I know because I looked at the clock on my microwave afterward, trying to anchor myself to something real, something normal. In Vietnam, we called it grounding yourself, finding something solid when everything else was chaos. "You want to go back to work?" Tyler said. He wasn't yelling. That's what made it dangerous. His voice was perfectly level, controlled. I'd heard that tone before in interrogation rooms. It's the voice predators use when they're about to strike. "Fine. Let's talk about what you're really saying. You're saying Nathan isn't important enough. You're saying I'm not important enough. You're saying you'd rather count pills for strangers than take care of your own family?" "That's not what I'm saying," Amanda started. "Don't interrupt me when I'm talking to you." Every person at that table froze. 14 people, 14 witnesses, and not one of us moved. I'd been in tense situations. Before, domestic disturbance calls where you walk into a house and feel the electricity in the air. This felt exactly like that. My nephew Kevin shifted in his seat. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan. I could see him reading the room the same way I was. Scott Johnson, my old army buddy, was watching Tyler with the careful attention of someone who'd learned to spot trouble before it exploded. "Tyler," Amanda whispered. Her voice was so small, like she was trying to disappear. "Please, can we talk about this at home?" "No, we're talking about it now because apparently your father thinks he can run your life, thinks he can make decisions for my family." "I didn't make any decision," I started. "You offered to babysit." Tyler turned to me. His eyes were cold. "You offered to enable my wife to abandon her responsibilities. You think because you raised Amanda alone after Barbara died, you know what's best for everyone. But you don't. You're a lonely old man who needs to learn to mind his own business." My sister Nicole gasped. Reverend Stephanie started to stand. But Amanda stood up first. "Don't talk to my father like that," she said. Her voice was still shaking, but there was something underneath it. The steel I remembered from when she was 16, when she told her high school principal that the dress code was unfair, when she stood up to the college counselor who said pharmacy school was too hard for girls like her. I saw that steel, and for just a moment, I had hope. Tyler saw it too. And that's when everything changed. His right hand came up fast, open palm across her left cheek. The sound was like a gunshot in that small room. Amanda's head snapped to the side. She stumbled backward, hit the edge of the table, caught herself with both hands. For 3 seconds, I counted them later, lying awake at 3 a.m., playing it over and over. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence was complete. Then Michelle Wilson started clapping. Slow, deliberate, 3 claps like she was applauding a performance. "Good," she said. She was smiling. "Finally, someone needed to put her in her place. That girl has been getting too big for her britches for years. Talking back, making demands, forgetting who puts a roof over her head and food on her table." I looked at my daughter. There was a red mark spreading across her cheek in the exact shape of Tyler Wilson's hand. Her eyes were wide, shocked, like she couldn't believe what had just happened. But I realized with horror this had happened before. I could see it in the way she immediately covered her face with her hand, in the way she hunched her shoulders, in the way she stepped back from the table automatically, creating distance, protecting herself. This had happened before, and I, her father, the man who'd promised to protect her from the day she was born, I had missed it. Every instinct from 30 years of police work kicked in. I'd walked into enough domestic violence scenes to know what I was looking at. I'd seen enough women with that exact expression, that exact body language. I'd arrested enough men who stood over their victims with that exact look of ownership and control. The difference was, this was my daughter. This was my house. This was my family. I stood up. My hands weren't shaking. Later, I would be grateful for that. 3 decades of police work and 2 tours in Vietnam had taught me to be calm in emergencies, to act when others freeze, to make decisions when seconds matter. I picked up my cell phone from the counter where I'd left it next to the apple pie that nobody would eat. "What are you doing?" Tyler said. He was still standing over my daughter, still in that position of power, of control. But his voice had changed. There was uncertainty there now. Fear. I unlocked my phone, opened the phone app, dialed 911. My fingers were steady. I'd made this call hundreds of times during my career, but never for my own family. Never from my own dinner table. The operator answered on the first ring. 911, what's your emergency? My daughter has just been assaulted, I said. My voice was clear, steady, professional. In my home at 847 Riverside Drive. The perpetrator is still here. I need police immediately. Sir, can you tell me more about the situation? Domestic violence, 14 witnesses. Please send someone now. Units are on the way, sir. Stay on the line with me. Are you in immediate danger? Not me, my daughter. But I'm not letting the perpetrator leave. Tyler took a step toward me. You crazy old man, hang up that phone right now. I didn't hang up. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And I saw what I should have seen months ago, years ago. This wasn't just anger. This wasn't just a moment of stress. I was looking at a predator who believed he owned my daughter, who thought he had the right to hit her because she disagreed with him, because she defended me, because she dared to want something for herself. I'd arrested men like Tyler Wilson. I'd testified against them. I'd seen what they did to their families when nobody was watching, and now one of them had been sitting at my dinner table for 7 years. Nobody leaves this house, I said. I wasn't talking to Tyler. I was talking to everyone at that table. To my sister Nicole, who was crying silently. To Reverend Stephanie, who had her phone out calling someone. To my nephew Kevin, who was standing now, putting himself between Tyler and me. Kevin had that look I recognized from our army days. Alert. Ready. To Michelle Wilson, who had stopped smiling, and to Amanda, who was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear, hope, relief, all three mixed together. You're going to regret this, Tyler said. His voice was different now. Lower. Dangerous. You have no idea what you just did, old man. No idea what you've started. Yes, I said quietly. I do. The operator was still on the line. Sir, officers are 3 minutes away. Can you stay on the line? Yes. The perpetrator is still here. He's standing approximately 8 feet from me. 6 feet 2 inches tall, 215 pounds, wearing a light blue polo shirt and khaki pants. His name is Tyler Michael Wilson. Date of birth April 3rd, 1982. Tyler's eyes widened. He hadn't expected me to know his middle name, his birth date. But I knew everything. I'd known since the day he'd asked my daughter to marry him, since I'd smiled and said congratulations, and then spent the next week doing what I'd learned to do in my 30 years as a cop. Research, background checks, public records, credit reports. I'd found the 2005 arrest for domestic violence in Athens, Georgia. Charges dropped when his girlfriend, Amanda Peterson, left the state. I'd found the restraining order from 2008. A woman named Ashley Harris also dropped when she moved to Florida. I'd found the pattern, and I'd said nothing because Amanda was so happy. Because I'd thought maybe he'd changed. Maybe those women were lying. Maybe I was being paranoid. I'd convinced myself. I'd chosen to believe the best instead of trusting my gut. In police work, we have a saying. Trust your gut, it's usually right. I'd ignored my own training. Not anymore. Sir, officers are at your building. Can you buzz them in? My nephew will meet them at the door. Kevin moved immediately, heading for the hallway. Tyler made a move like he was going to follow, to run. My old army buddy, Scott, stepped in front of him. Scott was 71 years old and walked with a cane after taking shrapnel in his leg during the Tet Offensive, but he was still a Marine at heart. The look on his face said clearly, "Try it. Just try it." Tyler didn't try it. We stood there in my house, the house where I'd raised my daughter alone after Barbara died, where I'd read her bedtime stories and helped her with algebra homework and taught her to make barbecue sauce using my father's recipe. The house where I'd promised her that she would never have to be afraid because I would always protect her. And we waited. It took 2 minutes and 47 seconds for the police to reach my door. I know because I was still counting. Old habit from patrol days. Counting my daughter's breaths, quick and shallow. Counting my own heartbeats, too fast but steady. Counting the seconds until my daughter would be safe. The knock came at 7:18 p.m. Atlanta Police Department. Kevin opened the door. 2 officers entered, a man and a woman. The woman was in her late 50s, black, with gray streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Sharp eyes that took in the whole scene in seconds. The dinner table still set with half-eaten food. The 14 people frozen in various states of shock. Tyler standing rigid in the middle of the room. Amanda against the wall with her hand still covering her cheek. The woman officer's eyes stopped on Amanda's face, then moved to Tyler, then to me. Something passed across her expression. Recognition? Professional assessment? "I'm Detective Angela Garcia," she said. "We got a call about a domestic assault." Her voice was professional, calm, but her eyes were angry. I'd seen that look before on cops who'd worked too many domestic violence calls. She looked at Amanda. "Ma'am, did someone hit you?" Amanda didn't answer. She was looking at Tyler. He was looking back at her, and I could see the threat in his eyes, the silent message. "Don't you dare." "My name is Roger Miller," I said. "Retired Atlanta PD, 30 years on the force. This is my daughter, Amanda Miller Wilson. That man is her husband, Tyler Wilson. Approximately 6 minutes ago, he struck her across the face with his open hand in front of 14 witnesses, including his mother, Michelle Wilson, who applauded." Detective Garcia's head turned sharply toward Michelle. "You applauded?" she said. Her voice was very quiet. Michelle lifted her chin. "This is a private family matter. You have no right to be here. My son was simply disciplining his wife after she disrespected him and his mother. This man," she pointed at me, "has interfered where he doesn't belong." The silence that followed was complete. Then Detective Garcia spoke. "Ma'am, put your hands behind your back." Michelle's mouth fell open. "What?" "You just admitted to witnessing an assault and approving of it. That makes you an accessory. I'm detaining you for questioning." She looked at her partner. "Officer Stevens, please secure Mrs. Wilson while I speak to the victim." Michelle started to protest, but Officer Carl Stevens was already moving toward her with handcuffs. "This is outrageous!" Michelle shrieked. "My son did nothing wrong. That ungrateful girl has been asking for this for years." "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," Officer Stevens said. "I strongly suggest you use it." Detective Garcia approached Amanda carefully. "Amanda," she said gently, "my name is Angela. I need you to tell me what happened. In your own words. Can you do that?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears. She looked at me. I nodded. "And my daughter, my beautiful, brilliant daughter, who'd graduated summa cum laude from pharmacy school, who'd been a straight-A student, who'd volunteered at homeless shelters and animal rescues, who'd never asked for anything except to be loved and treated with respect." My daughter took her hand away from her face and spoke. "Yes," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "He hit me." The words hung in the air like a confession and a liberation all at once. Detective Garcia's jaw tightened. "Has this happened before?" Amanda didn't answer with words. She just nodded. How many times? A tear ran down Amanda's cheek, cutting a line through her makeup. I could see the bruise underneath now, purpling at the edges. I don't know, Amanda whispered. I stopped counting. That's when Tyler moved. He lunged toward Amanda. I don't know what he was planning to do. Grab her, threaten her, hit her again. But he didn't get the chance. Officer Stevens was on him in seconds, spinning him around, pulling his arms behind his back. Tyler Michael Wilson, you're under arrest for assault and battery. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rights continued, but I stopped listening. I was watching my daughter collapse to her knees in front of me, watching her put her face in her hands, watching 7 years of pain and silence break open all at once. I knelt beside her, my knees protesting, my back aching, but I didn't care. I wrapped my arms around her. I've got you, I whispered. I've got you, baby. You're safe now. She sobbed into my shoulder, full, desperate sobs that I felt in my bones. Behind us, Tyler was being led out in handcuffs, still yelling. Michelle was screaming about lawyers and lawsuits. My family members were crying, talking over each other, asking what they should do. But all of that faded away because in that moment, in my house that smelled like barbecue and apple pie, I was holding my daughter while she cried the tears she'd been holding back for God knows how long. 3 weeks after that Sunday dinner, we discovered that Tyler and Michelle had been running a construction bid rigging scheme, defrauding the city of Atlanta out of over $1.2 million over 4 years. Wilson Construction Solutions had been winning municipal contracts through fake bids and inflated invoices. Michelle kept the books, creating shell companies and moving money through accounts in 3 different states. But here's what broke the case wide open. Amanda had been documenting everything. For 2 years, she'd been secretly recording Tyler on a phone he didn't know about. 63 audio files, all time-stamped, all uploaded to a cloud account. Not just the violence, but his conversations with Michelle about the fraud scheme. My daughter had been building a case against her abuser without even knowing it. When Detective Garcia played those recordings for the FBI, they moved fast. Amanda's voice, shaking but clear, describing Tyler's threats. Tyler's voice, cold and calculating, discussing how to hide money from city auditors. Michelle's voice in the background, encouraging both the financial crimes and the violence. Good, Derek, we heard Michelle say in one recording from March 2022. She needs to learn respect. Hit her again if she keeps asking questions about the money. The federal trial started 6 months later. I sat in that courtroom every single day, watching my daughter testify about 7 years of abuse, watching her explain how Tyler controlled every aspect of her life, from her job to her friends to her bank account, how he threatened to take Nathan and disappear if she ever tried to leave. During Michelle's testimony, we learned something that explained everything. In 1979, when Michelle was 16, she'd killed her first son, Michael, Tyler's older brother, pushed him down the stairs during an argument, served 22 months in juvenile detention. Her record was sealed, her name changed when she married. Tyler never knew he had a brother, never knew his mother was a killer. The cycle of violence started before Tyler was even born. Tyler was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Michelle got 8 years. Both were ordered to pay full restitution to the city. Tyler's parental rights were permanently terminated. He'll never see Nathan again. 6 months after the sentencing, Amanda moved into her own apartment in Virginia Highland, 15 minutes from mine. She works part-time as a counselor at the Atlanta Domestic Violence Center now, in addition to her pharmacy job. She helps other women document their abuse, escape their abusers, build new lives. Nathan is 8 now. He plays Little League baseball. He makes straight A's. He tells me he wants to be a police officer when he grows up. To help people, Grandpa, like you helped Mommy. I'm 68 now. I volunteer at the DV Center 3 days a week. I've helped 47 women escape abusive situations. Every Tuesday night, I meet with other fathers and grandfathers at VFW Post 2681. We talk about the warning signs we missed, the red flags we ignored. We share phone numbers for lawyers, shelters, counselors. My buddy Scott Johnson always ends our meetings the same way. Brothers, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Make the call. One phone call changed everything for my family. When Tyler hit Amanda at my dinner table, I had a choice. I could make excuses, hope it would get better, pretend it wasn't as bad as it looked, or I could pick up the phone and choose to protect my daughter. I chose protection. I chose action. I chose to trust what I saw instead of what Tyler and Michelle wanted me to believe. If you're reading this and you're being hurt, know this. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You are worth saving. If you know someone being hurt, don't wait for them to ask for help. Sometimes the person being abused can't make that call themselves. Make it for them. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-79-97233. Available 24/7, confidential, free. I'm Roger Miller. This is my story. This is my daughter's story. And we're both still here, still standing, still surviving. Sometimes the most important battle a man fights isn't on a foreign battlefield, but at his own dinner table, protecting the people he loves from the enemies who pretend to be family. The greatest legacy an old man can leave isn't money or property. It's teaching the next generation that violence stops here, with us, today.